Dunk, dunk, dunk. School of living, yeah. I'll go ahead and live. Yeah. I've got this book right here, and I got myself an autograph. Here's to more dancing. All the best. I love Lancaster. Lancaster. I've been saying it wrong for years. Lancaster is my new favorite place on earth. And this book is from Mildred Loomis, as you can see on the bottom. It's our second best president ever at the School of Living. So go ahead and live. This is life advice from your Aunt Loomis. All right. We're going to start the show off with a little song. I'd like to thank everybody for coming along, giving about 5 minutes to tune in. Thank y'all out there for getting the memo from last week. It's 10:30 instead of 10. I decided to gear up and make an extra special show that I'll probably actually want to watch again later. We're on show number 6. And this is the School of Living. Where is the School of Living? We're gonna talk about it. But before. All right, that was enough. So Go Ahead and Live is the craziest 1971 publication you will ever read. And I'm currently reading this for class. I have a class on the 60s counterculture. This is a book from Alan Watts called The Book. Basically, is one of the most poetic ways of writing down some of those small clips you may have seen in the late 2010s where like Alan Watts, they put dubstep underneath his voice talking. And that got me into right around that time listening to his electronic music library, which is free. And so you could listen to Alan Watts talk. And the chapter I was just reading was the game of black and white. And where is it at? There we go. So it's talking about how there's got to be evil and good. There's got to be two competing factors, right? And it's just kind of funny. He says, the assumption is strengthened by the second moral of these fantasies, which is more startling. Here applies the French proverb, plus ça change, plus c'est la même chose. The more it changes, the more it's the same thing. Change is in some sense an illusion, for we are always at the point where any future could take us. If the human race develops an electronic nervous system outside the bodies of individual people, thus giving us all one mind and one global body, this is almost precisely what's happened in the organization of cells which compose our own bodies. We have already done it. So when I think of the intentional community movement, hello, for those who don't know me, I'm Julian. I lived at one of these homesteads in the East Coast, part of the School of Living for 5 years, from 2019 to 2025. Slowly just integrated the team of the community in the woods where I was. And it's interesting today to watch people who, inspired this movement of owning land in trusts in order to take it out of the speculation market using a single land tax, which is called land value taxation. And so you estimate the highest production value on the land. And with that, you take all other taxes out because land becomes a natural birthright and you are to pay taxes for the best use of it, but so is everybody else. And that evens out the playing field, which we'll get more into a little later. Way later, you have Ralph Borsodi in 1930. We're talking about 1879, an economist named Henry George. I have a lot of books somewhere in here. Whatever. I have books everywhere. So there's like books on this guy. Let me pull one up. Sorry, I have too many books. This is how many books it takes to get a gist of this. So here we have Property and Land, written by Duke of Argyll and Henry George. And as I flip through it, it's just like they're trying to use this for different like land ownership structures. This is so funny. Some of the this is so funny. It's just like time traveling because they actually wrote a lot back then. Here we have The Major Problems of Living, which used to be published by the School of Living. It's Ralph Borsodi himself. It's a new approach to incorporation. So he says there's 17 problems, and there's a bigger book, right? There's a big book called The 17 Problems of Living, and that's his like best work if you look at his entire life. But you got to get into it slowly. You got to understand like what is he even talking about. So he's talking about is this little flyer we used to give out called Progress and Poverty. And now this is a high school version that's been done called Progress and Poverty by a guy named Bob Drake. We do have the audio version of that book. If anyone's interested, you guys could contact me. But it's weird because if you get to reading this book here, which I inherited from a member of the woods where I lived, not far from where I'm living, and it talks about how's this one? Just flipped a random page. It says securing equal rights to land. Well, oh wait, sorry. It's yeah. So what Progress and Poverty talks about, this is the Bob Drake version. They're abridged versions because the other book is kind of hard to read. So you would take all land in existence and put it to common use. And but let's start off real slow. Let's talk about who you are, who are watching this, and how maybe you'd want to join the School of Living. So let's remix some clips and see what we got. First, we'll go to schoolofliving.org. Can you see this? Yeah, okay. So to make it as big as possible, schoolofliving.org. Okay, so here I just wanted to read a tiny bit. I'm probably going to lose a lot of people who don't like being read to, but this is whatever. This is from our own page. Remarks by Ralph Borsodi on the dedication of the first School of Living building. So there were buildings, where people like published stuff like this, like Ecology on the Land, which became required reading, published by the School of Living. And they had their own press. So like a lot of these books here were printed there. And there's this other book I found at my library at school, all the critics of Henry George, but I don't know. I still, you have to see like how it applies to real life. It turns into people who write books like The Earth Belongs to Everyone from Alana Hartsock, who's a dear friend of mine now. And I'm glad to be on board with a few Georgian podcasts and whatnot. Try to like educate people and myself, honestly, on what is, I don't know if you can see this book, what is the land value tax? What is a single land tax? What is a single tax? L'impôt unique, the single tax, basically goes into more of what Henry George is talking about. It's just kind of hard to like even imagine me reading this without laughing, but let me try to read this. Well, you know what? I'll put a bookmark on this because no one cares. And I'm going to read you from the website. The School of Living is not truly a school. It is even less an institution. It is least of all a just a building. It is true that when spelled with capitals, it is all these things. But long before it materialized into any of them, it was first of all an idea. But it has become more than an idea. It is now an attitude towards life and towards the problems of society, above all towards the problems of human nature, particularly between those who love one another. To make all living a problem in education is to adopt a definite philosophy of life. When we moved out of the city and into the country, we made a startling discovery. We who were proud of our educations, who had achieved a measure of success in competitive struggle called New York, discovered how little we knew. Chickens were problems. A sow a dangerous beast. A garden a great mystery. A property was something about which we white-collar proletarians knew nothing at all. Everything we discovered in the country convicted us of ignorance. So I just want to so I want to skip to this part. So the Borsodis decided to go to school again, but we decided that the school should not consist of a classroom, that it should have neither teachers nor pupils, that it should have no courses, no graduates. And we decided that the school should be everywhere that we lived, and that we should teach one another and learn from one another, and that the subject of our study should be living, and that there should be no graduation from this school until we graduated from life itself. Life has come to mean to us learning how to live. That it may come to mean that our friends and to all people everywhere is our wish as we join here in dedicating our new building. Okay, so they talked about to associate, select a group of artists, craftsmen, teachers, and demonstration of this the contribution which decentralized, self-sufficient living in the country may make to redress the economic and psychological insecurities of our industrialized age. To study and develop the possibilities of the home and homestead as a productive, creative institution. To offer those who may be able to come only for short visits a place to study homesteading and their part in making life more meaningful here and now. Okay. So, I have one person. Thank you, Mom. One person is watching. I love my audience. You're always there. Okay, so I'm going to show one clip that I think is very important as we're talking about Ralph Borsodi. And if you're not my mom, I'm sorry, no disrespect. I just assume my mom's always watching. All right, here we go.
Borsodi's experiments in rural living were recorded in his book, Flight from the City, 1933. A portion of Chapter 1 is as follows. We finally bought a place located about an hour and 3/4 from the city. It included a small frame house, 1.5 stories high, containing not a single modern improvement. There was no plumbing, no running water, no gas, no electricity, no steam heat. There was an old barn and a chicken house, and a little over 7 acres of land. There was a little fruit in the orchard, some apples, cherries, plums, but of the apples, at least there were plenty. Yet 7 acres, as we called the place, was large enough for our initial experiment. We began the experiment with 3 principal assets: courage, foolhardiness, and a vision. But we had plenty of liabilities. We had little capital and only a modest salary. We knew nothing about raising vegetables, fruit, and poultry. All these things we had to learn. While I was a handyman, I had hardly ever had occasion to use a hammer and a saw. A man working in an office rarely does. And yet, if our experiment was to succeed, it required that I should make myself a master of all trades.
Okay, I don't want to impose on the shepherdess.com. If you could go check her out, I feel like I borrowed her beautiful voice for like 5 minutes. The shepherdess.com, honestly, she just read Ralph Borsodi word per word. So I don't know, it's an old book. I don't know. We'll figure it out. We'll allow it. I'm just kidding. No. I think it's great. I heard someone read it to me, and then I bought the book and read it. It's called Flight from the City from Ralph Borsodi. It's a great book. And she's talking about, she's like, she's narrating as him. She was like, we moved to the country to live a better life. I knew nothing of chickens. I knew not how to run a saw. I never made my own coat, but damn it, I'm gonna learn. And he was just so inspiring in those chapters. So if you've never read this book about homesteading called Flight from the City from Ralph Borsodi, it's easily accessible on Amazon. So go ahead and get it. Okay, so the shepherdess.com is who just read that little chapter. And let me let her read like 2 more seconds of it because it's relevant.
We cut ourselves off from the city comforts to which we had become so accustomed. Discomforts were plentiful in the beginning. The hardships of those early years are now fading into a romantic haze, but they were real enough at the time. A family starting with our handicaps had to expect them. But almost from the beginning, there were compensations for our discomfort. Before the end of our first year, the year of the Depression of 1921, when millions were tramping the streets of our cities looking for work, we began to enjoy the feeling of plenty. We cut our hay, gathered our fruits, made gallons and gallons of cider. We had a cow and produced our own milk and butter, but finally gave her up. By furnishing us with 20 quarts of milk a day, she threatened to put us into the dairy business. So we changed to a pair of blooded Swiss goats. We equipped a poultry yard and had eggs and chickens. We ended the year with plenty, not only for our own needs, but for a generous hospitality to our friends.
So we have the Progress and Poverty Community Land Trusts single tax, where we tax the most efficient use of the land on these little parcels of land, and that gets people to have more than they need and have like a really groovy existence on a lot of land and pay for just what you're using and be aware of the ecological impact of your actions near you. But besides that, it's pretty much like see as a creative laboratory, like what a homestead could become if you really want to live where you live for your whole life or for 20 years and then move on and go do something else. Like, so, okay, I don't know what other clips I have. I want to throw a bunch of clips down because I'm happy today. Oh, yeah, that's what a school looks like in a building. That's me in school. You want to see it again? Okay, isn't that awkward? Okay, I'm done. But why is school not in a building? It's because the school of living is supposed to be a network of people being their own teachers. Go ahead and live is not just a passive slogan. Like Mildred Loomis was really passionate about this. So without further ado, I'm gonna add another clip and see what else we got. Podcasted till I got 8,500 views and 600 likes on a 4-hour long podcast where I did a translation work. Thank you for watching, guys. Good night. Apparently, speaking English is a great skill for French people. And since I'm going to school for French, I translated a video which sadly got way too many views. That was right after the video. I got 8,000 views on my first video, and then I did another one and I had 5,000 views. I got my first threats from trolls, and that was fun. So I got my first moderators, and I'm learning all this stuff. So I'm talking about the next clip, but it's like relevant to today. How is the single land tax and living life in community and doing your own thinking relevant to our survival? And I have some activist friends who gave me this video, and I was like, whoa. And we have the same glasses. This guy's a surgeon named Jack Cruz. It's a podcast from a couple weeks ago. and then I'll show you one or two more things on intentional communities that I found. But this might be a useful clip for some people to see because a lot is happening right now, and we need like people with credentials who like have their names on the line to say like their truth. And this guy's like a surgeon. I think he's been a surgeon for like 30 years, so like a brain surgeon. So I've never heard him talk before, like a couple months ago, but I thought this clip was relevant. Like, we not only need to have like enough food and enough land for other people, we also need to like adapt like how Ralph Borsodi is going to fit in to 2025 and beyond. If we go to 2030, are we going to be aware that some of the stuff that's going on is just super sketchy? And like, meanwhile, like, why would you leave the cities if the cities are the most surveilled, most controlled? You have to go to a center for creativity, you have to go to a venue for music. People usually just play music after dinner on the homestead. Like, you don't really need a huge crowd to feel like getting your rocks off. Like, you got chickens and goats and dogs, and they're all snuggly, and maybe you got goats and horses and cows, who gives you a lot of milk. You just play for them. So I do like playing music for big crowds, don't get me wrong, but there's also a virtue to be like, as this book says, having ecological use of the land, and so on this page it says the role, I don't know if you can see that, the role of the community land trust. I don't know if you can see that, but anyways, I'm gonna try to read you like half a minute from that. A community land trust, CLT, is a legal entity, usually a nonprofit corporation, that holds land in stewardship for all humankind. Users of land held in trust have their use rights guaranteed to them via lease contract. Until the various community land trusts have different focuses, they all have at least two philosophies in common: that the land be used in such a way as to prevent environmental damage, and that land should not be a commodity that can be speculated on, bought, or sold. At the School of Living, we see a common base in these two ideas: that the site value of land, which includes both the natural resources as well as the locational value created by the larger community, belongs not to those who presently occupy the land and had no hand in creating that value, but to the larger community, which also has responsibility to make sure that natural resources are not destroyed. We are the caretakers of the earth, not her owner. The Community Land Trust is a method for putting these principles into practice. The School of Living, this is a great quote, is an adult educational organization, and one of its functions being a CLT, Community Land Trust. This booklet was developed to help clarify what environmental sound use of the land means to School of Living, and details how a community land trust and its leasees might interact. We sometimes use the terms the trust, and this should be understood to be referring to the soul and not necessarily to other community land trusts. A land user may be referred to as the leasee, and the term trustee may be used for land held in trust. I'm so sorry if half people will never watch this because they got bored a while ago. I'm gonna send this to people who can hang. If y'all can hang, say whoop. I'm just kidding. This is in the future. I'm doing these every Sunday at 10. If you have nothing to do and you get out of church, watch it on replay at like 2 or wherever you are in the world. If this isn't exactly when you're inside of a church, then watch it with me. And if you're French, put on the subtitles. And if you're not, I will only speak English, I promise. So let's watch a clip really quick. I really like what this girl did with her montage. I think we could all read the book professionally into a microphone of Ralph Borsodi and relate to it, and make a little movie of our own. And then piecing together all of those would be a really fun project. Besides that, yeah, like alternative education wise, I've seen nothing but great publications that stand the test of time. And I mean, it's just really cool. Like when you get to this book, the major universal problems of living, it's just like insanity. I think I pulled it up on the last podcast, but yeah, I mean, even the prices of this stuff. This was printed a long time ago. It's nuts. Sorry, I'm sorry. I'm like, every time you dive into these things, you're like, does anybody care? And you're like, yeah, dude, everybody cares. And you're like, nobody cares. And so you have to just like know what to look for in the intentional communities movement to know that like they know of us, or they know someone that was one of us that was just like going out every year during winter time to discover other communities. Part of the communities movement is life with other people. So I would love to talk about Findhorn community briefly, and show you a thing I found on community life and general. So let me show you that one. It takes a village. That's what it's called. All right, let's see what's up. Can you see this? Good.
Finally, let's get into co-living, co-housing, communes. We need to define these terms before we continue. The umbrella term, I think, is intentional community, also sometimes known as a utopian community or cooperative community. Basically, a group of people choosing to live together with a common purpose. Here are a few types. Now, of course, a group or arrangement can utilize multiple of these labels. Co-living is multiple individuals sharing a dwelling. Co-housing supports neighborly connections, generally by incorporating both private homes and shared common facilities. Spiritual or religious, student co-ops, eco-villages organized around ecology and sustainability, and communes, which share resources and typically income share. Again, throughout this video, I've struggled to define things because some people use terms interchangeably, and also like it just depends on every group. For example, in terms of like organization or financial structuring, you can rent, you can buy. These models can be for profit, not for profit. It can be a co-op where you own shares of the entire property, or it can be more like a condo where you own your unit and then you pay community fees.
I don't really want to interrupt her flow, but we could pause there and ask ourselves, do we understand how we own land? Because that's the whole key to Henry George and Ralph Borsodi being relevant today for people who aren't being taught this information. So Mildred Loomis does a great job, and Go Ahead and Live in the back of the book. Maybe I'll read you this at the end of the hour. She says, how to start a school of living. And it's a whole chapter, page 220. So I'm going to let her finish a little bit more. I have another video to show you. This is a great video I found of someone reading a bunch of definitions from the Federation for Intentional Communities. Go check them out. They're super good network of networks for Federation of Intentional Communities, I think. And they have classes on how to get along, how to do group process, how to own land. We at School of Living have expertise with some people that could help, but these videos are so self-explanatory, and people are going through the basics of what you need to know if you show up to these places. This is not exactly equality each time. It's not exactly like fair. If you're fresh, you have to like earn your keep to hang with the seniority, and people have raised their kids and want to die on the land. Like there's such a level of like interpersonal psychology people aren't ready for, and then you just show up and here you are, there's no training wheels for this. So you're lucky if you survive this with your dignity intact and like some kind of like happiness from the whole experience. And just if you learned a lot, dude, you're so lucky. Just be happy. And so you know what? I don't want to take credit for this girl's video. I do want to show you this other girl from the Netherlands who puts her intentional community life on the spot. And she goes to Findhorn. Findhorn, she says, is the oldest community, which I don't know. They did alternative education, so I was interested in Findhorn, but I don't know everything about it. So let's explore.
It began in 1962 as an experimental architectural community based at a park in Moray, Scotland. Due to the village's extraordinary results, now its members serve as consultants for the United Nations and multinational corporations. And Findhorn is also very famous as an educational center, and they host many workshops, programs, retreats, and you can actually also create your own retreat at Findhorn. And for more information about the community and how to visit, I have linked everything in the description below. The next community on this list is Tamera. Tamera started in 1978 with a small group, and it's one of the oldest and largest eco-villages in Europe, together with, for example, Findhorn and Damener. It is located in the Alentejo region of southwestern Portugal, which is just 2 hours away from Lisbon. The community believes in a future without war, in love without fear, and they work to build the Terra Nova by creating healing biotopes as centers to research and model a new planetary culture with strong ethical foundations. So Tamera is a peace research village of around 200 people that attracts visitors from all over the world every year. During the pandemic, Tamera has actually been closed for visits, but they reopen now in March, and their guest season go from March to mid-November. And they have
I really don't want to I don't want to steal her shine. I want to go to Portugal now. It's funny, like you start going to intentional communities thinking, oh, that's it, this or that, and then you end up in this huge hyperloop of like, I want to go to the mall. In that last video before our Swedish friend, there was quite a few communities that just like flashed by. One is Twin Oaks and one is Cambia. And those are dear to my heart. I want to go check them out. So I don't know. I think everything about intentional communities, as long as you're a guest, is really fun. Everything about becoming a member is really scary, in my personal opinion. And everything about like falling in love with something that just ties you to the mix as some experience you might never have anywhere else. Like that's precious. Precious. Like we only have so many wild moments where we could go to an intentional community and feel like we belong enough to live there full time and good health and have some hippie job that is nearby. I don't know. I feel like I have experienced that many times the last few years, and yeah, it's intense. So maybe it's only been 30 minutes. Okay, so I showed you what my classroom looks like. Okay, so I'm going to remove my classroom. So maybe you should see my classroom. This is what I look like in my classroom every day. So there's no classroom at School of Living. Okay, cool. Okay, then I'll remove this. That's not what we're talking about. Okay, why is there no classroom at School of Living? Because it's not, it's beyond the point, And that's magical to have a thing that's beyond the point where there's no classroom and they start talking about wild stuff. So let's go deep into it. Like I want to look up a school of living, a school of living. Chapter 23. Okay. Dear young reader of Go Ahead and Live, Laura and I are beginning another span in our life adventure. We've been accepting into Cayuga Heights community. Another 10 years perhaps we'll write about our life there. But for now, our story, which our good friends, the authors of these chapters, have helped us to tell, is finished. But before we sign off, may we chat with you a bit. We'd like to know you. We'd like to know what you think of the adventure Laura and I have had. Are you happy with life as you've had it? Or are you looking for another way? Perhaps are you like the college folks who wrote us? We're looking for some new approaches to life, but search as we may, we haven't found any. Or maybe like the young mother in Detroit, you are looking for some real revolutionary answer to the modern situation. Some of the steps we took look like natural childbirth and breastfeeding are very, very old. But to us, all our ventures were new and at first very strange. And as you know, the going was rough in spots. You have seen that we were poorly prepared. Our schooling did little to make us ready. Grammar school prepared us for high school for college, or a career, but nothing prepared us for the important decisions we had to make about life. So What does that make you? How does that make you feel? 1971. 20 years before I was born. We need to be able to say the truth. Let's listen to Jack Cruz. Jack Cruz, a surgeon whose clip I'm going to play next. Listen to my friend Jack. He's cool.
I'm developing this idea for you. So in Bitcoin, we have guys like Max Kaiser. We have the big Bitcoiners. They always say, Lawrence Lepard, you cannot taper a Ponzi scheme. Why? Because when people want their money back, it causes the house of cards to collapse.
Yes.
What if I told you that the industrial military complex figured out how to taper a Ponzi scheme with a COVID shot? You're slowly going to take people out who complied so you don't have to pay them back, bro. And guess what? Why does it make sense? What do you know about U.S. tax law? When people die that have a lot of money in a Roth or an IRA, don't they have to pay estate tax, 55%? So who's getting the gravy? The government's getting that money back, bro. So guess what? Do you understand now why we started this podcast with Susan and the turbo cancer? And yet I took you back 50 years and showed it to you in Jack Rubenstein. And what's happening now that Kevin McKiernan has proven? Kevin McKiernan does the test, takes unopened expired vials and fucking tests and finds SV40 in a jab 50 years after the polio massacre. Do you understand, bro, what's really going on?
It was a 4-hour podcast. I don't think y'all are ready for that. But what's funny is we have a surgeon bunking stuff. We've had tons of people who haven't been happy with the last few years, and we have the next few years ahead of us. Let's go ahead and live. Let's stay positive. And this book here from The Earth Belongs to Everyone describes a journey of my dear friend who, though was highly accredited, finds herself in San Francisco in extreme poverty. Let me read you a little bit of her writing. Peace is not only the ability to resolve conflicts nonviolently, but to ascertain conditions of basic justice and fairness in human interactions. Force has most often predominated over fairness in the long history of human affairs. Territorial conflict has for millennium been a root cause of war. The price of peace has too often been the cost of continued injustice and conditions of economic servitude. Veterans of war, little more than mercenaries, to begin with many cases, come to home to want and poverty. 50% of the homeless in America today are estimated to be veterans, and 50% of those served in Vietnam. Military induction has been the only way to be all you can be for millions of Americans' lower class people. Many risked their lives for their homeland, yet had no inherent right to any part of that land when they returned home. So okay, now I'm skipping around a little bit, but it's on page 53 of Earth Belongs to Everyone, and it's called Equal Rights to Earth. Equal Rights to Earth. No, these are crude attempts at solving the problem. Just as every human being, strong and weak, is considered of inherent equal value as a person with the right to self-expression, so every human must have fair and equal right to the earth itself. That right to the earth cannot be vulnerable to the whim of partisan politics. The right to the earth must be vested in people themselves in a way that could be understood and monitored by the average individual. I think this book was written like 1995 or something like that. Let me check. I don't want to mistake myself. No, but it's incredibly ahead of its time. Sorry, 2008. This book is in 2008 and talks about land value taxation, and it's just a brilliant bunch of speeches where it puts in perspective like her career as an author and an activist who's trying to change the way we keep the cycle of enslavement and injustice and perpetual poverty and extreme riches like going in different facades and smokes and mirrors under different masks. But it always has to do with how people are using the land. If all these rich people build apartments where like poor people can move into and gave them jobs, then maybe we could fix it. I'm not mad at the rich people. I'm just saying. Anyways, so as we have a lot of things going on, I have another clip. What's this clip? Have you seen it? Podcasted, so I got 8,500 views. So I actually ended up with 11,500 views and then another 5,000 views. I don't know if you've ever translated stuff in a different language and gotten a lot of credit for it. It wasn't actually that cool. I'm going to take that out. Sorry. I didn't know what that was. Yeah, but I made a podcast the other day for some friends who wanted a translation done. And someone plugged me into a network where like, boom, there you go. You're with like 10,000 people. What do you have to say? And I'm like, just whatever's on the video, I guess. But I don't know. It got pretty funny. As you could tell, like, you know, there's a lot of life changes that are going to happen if the guy, if Zelensky is like rude to Trump again, or if, you know, like Macron starts a war with Russia just for its own sake for Europe. I feel like life is going to change. Like, you know, French people already haven't been happy for like 6-7 years with their government, most of them. And the ones that are kind of like la-di-da, if you ask me, but whatever. I have a lot of friends and family who don't mind the whole republic thing, you know, but they might not personally like the president himself or how ridiculous some of the stuff he's done or said is. But though no one cares what gender the wife or husband or they, Brigitte or Jean-Michel is, like, according to Candace Owens, which is what I translated to get that many views, it's still an idea of like someone being groomed from the age of 14 with a woman who's 40, and it was like his theater teacher, and like there's a whole like David Rothschild's on almost every picture since he's 20, like giving him access to a huge bank, and that's a couple years after, and he's just like very manipulatable if you're in this inner circle, I imagine. So I don't know, like I just was translating and French people were going nuts because no one could get the translation done. And I translate very well. So let it be said, I got 15,000 views last week for just translating Candace Owens. So thank you, Candace. French people love you. They wanted to understand what you were saying in French. So here we are. And I'm not going to keep translating weird stuff in French. It kind of gave me nightmares. But besides that, like, I'm glad to be part of the School of Living where you could go ahead and live far away from all this in the country. So The Earth Belongs to Everyone. I recommend this book. I got a signed copy somewhere. It's my second copy. It's definitely worth it. And then all the School of Living books. Just buying basically This Ugly Civilization, or what's it called? And if you go to our page, you could find it. I'm going to put it up on the screen. This Ugly Civilization, 17 Problems of Modern Day Living, and there's a third book. I know most of my friends will never look up most of these books, but I'm going to pull it up on the screen. And if you just go to publications, Ralph Borsodi, and you click here, you can see the Decentralist Manifesto, 17 Problems of Man. You could do Education of the Whole Man, Education and Living. And here you could click Flight from the City for free. There we go. Download this for me if you can. Oh, I'm going to download it right now and send it. Oh, yeah, I'm going to send that. Well, there you go. So here you have like a PDF of 66 pages, and you could go and read it for yourself. Flight from the City. Oh, here you go, full screen. Flight from the City, and it will... Can you see it? Sorry. If you can see it, this is it. It gives you a big chart, and it just says Flight from the City, And I mean, that's what that girl earlier was reading, so don't let me bore you to death. But basically, it's a real good thing when you reach like a homestead kind of thing, and you're like, wow, like it just was so easy. With the way the world is going, like there's only so many refuges from like society and the way it's headed, and it's kind of fun to see that, you know, through the thick and thin, like we still kind of like stand together mostly. I found two interesting clips of Heathcote, whom I was speaking of last time. Yep, people say je comprends rien. That's all right. I'm going to speak English for this one, but I'm going to show you this one clip, and then I'm going to head out. Désolé pour les Français. Ceci est en anglais aujourd'hui. And share tab to here. And yep, and wish y'all a good night and day if you're in the garden right now. Okay, so I woke up. I cleared all my things to go. Amy helped me. She did all the slide dishes. And we got the house ready. Got a hot chocolate. Got some French toast to me. I'm ready to go. Massachusetts, here we are. Okay. Crossing the Hudson River. New York, New York.
Long, long way to go. Mine was beside her, behind and alone.
Massachusetts. Said welcome here. I'm in Richmond, Massachusetts. It's pretty cool. It's nice roads. Nice farmhouse. Don't move here. Alright, here we are in Pittsfield. Purple part. Yeah, right. We're going down to the dance. Well, as you can see, we had a blast. It was like a whole weekend of fun and dancing. And I got the DJ and then just dance around. And basically these communities don't have to be like any one shape or form. Like they could be like a nice party vibe every now and then mixed with like they make money somehow, like teaching workshops and gatherings and hosting retreats. And at the same time, they could also be kind of like laid back. People want to just live and raise their kids and be left alone, you know, maybe do like one thing every now and then. But this is me in the garden. I was gardening of a storm. Like I just love this place. It's in Massachusetts. It's in Pittsfield. It's called Earth Dance. And I would go back anytime. It was really fun. But the gardeners do the same kind of gardening I do. You put it right there. Okay, so you have a magical pile of dirt, 2 wheelbarrows dumped down. All you need is a rake, and all this row was dirt like 4 days ago. So by flipping it, I helped dry it. By picking these up and sifting them, I'm just harvesting the dirt and creating compost out of the roots. And I'm almost done. And I've had way too much fun here. It's fun. All right, here you have it. No roots, just dirt. About 5-10 inches off the ground. There's no roots, no dirt. We just put a fork and flipped it, let it dry, brought it over here, and sifted it like this. And then we took this dirt and we put it right there. We're gonna do that for the whole rest. Ooh, cookies in the morning. All right, I'm in the now, got the GPS, got the keys in the car, got to take fucking 6 hours to get ready in the morning, but it's 2:30 or like 3 and I'm leaving. This has been a great time. I just said goodbye to one of the people here. And I feel like we all traveled to be here now, and sharing a dance together is like one of the favorite things I like to do.
As I went down in the river to pray, studying
Very happy to
about
leave.
that good old way, and who shall wear the star.
Well, that was back when I had goats and a cat. So I came back to my goats and my cat. And that's how my video ended. Anyways, it's been 51 minutes. At 51 minutes, I think we should congratulate anyone who has survived. Do I have anything inspiring? I don't know. I don't know. Some days I wonder if it's my job is just to like entertain people into being more motivated, but I definitely don't want to bore people with Henry George or Ralph Borsodi. I think they're very interesting, and I think that I don't know. There's not that many more things I really had in mind to talk about today. But what's funny is like you start to realize like you quickly start running out of steam on like trying to figure out if people are going to show up to listen or even listen later. And then you talk about like a tiny bit of like poppy culture stuff to some hippies online and boom, you get 10,000 views and everyone's like, yeah. And then they come back and they troll you and you get like a little bit of trolling and like a lot of love. But I'd rather just like keep talking to like 10 people and keep it really highbrow. Like if you don't understand, then you don't have to watch it. Then be like super lowball kind of like caliber, just translating stuff that's just like edgy, but no one cares about. Leave Macron alone. Someone came and was like, okay, they're not going to forget you. And I was like, whoa, dude, what's next? Like death threats? And so I took the power of YouTube and chopped the head off. I was like, chop on YouTube. I was like, goodbye, troll. Was ban? Is it called, sorry, ban and delete or something like that? I banned and delete à la française, which, is what we call chop of the head. So we delete the trolls in France, or French people do. And I was quick to do so after he started to say, leave Macron alone. And I was like, no one likes Macron in France. And everyone's trying to get this translation because we're trying to figure out if Candace Owens is actually saying anything new. And nothing that Candace Owens said is that new. Like everybody knew almost everything on there. So I enjoyed Candace Owens' work, and I think she's doing a great service for humanity. But Jesus Christ, what an edgy subject. I prefer watching goats and goat videos on YouTube. Like, I don't know. I think that's better for my brain. Some things that have happened on the alternative education world are, not just me going up there to Massachusetts, but also like finding parts of like my life here, like where I live. I guess I could share this with you guys. We have a oil heater inside the little greenhouse with a fan, and as you just said, if you don't move the air around, it starts to mold the top. So since it was cold last night, put an oil heater in there, keep temperature, and keep a fan to move the air around.
Yeah, you can take a little photo there. clean the edges.
Okay.
Into the bed?
Yeah.
We're going to take that out. Knock off the soil. And this goes into our compost pile.
All right.
Okay? A little trickier. Is that caught up on the grass there? Is it straight? I can't tell from here.
All right, so after separating this with a string, then sticking it with a shovel all the way along, you take. When it ends on the fifth one, it starts back on the first one.
Pass it on.
All right, so that is the deer repellent, an idea from Siberia. The deer get scared of the yellow reflection of the light at night and they don't want to come in. Okay, it must be around 2-3 p.m. and we just made sure we put string to partition the beds so far, and then we put a shovel in there to give it a little shove and separate the grass that's growing and invading the beds. And then now we're doing something else, digging in and just lifting it up and hand removing everything as it comes. So it doesn't seem that complicated. I'm lucky I'm in a beautiful yard that's very well designed. So this is me like 3 years ago. So 3 years ago, I was learning things that are simple, basic. But if people don't teach you how to compost correctly, like your whole compost is screwed up. So you're just going to waste money buying it. And I don't think it's worth buying. And then you're less in control of what is in your compost. Then you buy fertilizer. And so I think the basics are kind of funny because looking back, like it's funny for me to have said, oh, I'm just learning how to compost. But when you show up to the woods as a city person and you don't really know and you try for a few years, you still might not really know like the science underneath what you're supposed to do, not just why you're doing what you're doing, but more so why does it click, you know? Anyways, I'm going to skip through the video and show you different parts of it because it is a half an hour long, but just going to go through to here. Once our seeds are planted. Okay, let's go. All right, here we have our seeds. All right, here we have this bush of clove currants that the bumblebees are going crazy for. There you can see our apple tree the other day. So here we got the little plastic pieces running around up top, taking them off. All right, so we unscrewed the door. We took the whole front flap off. It was screwed to the tops by these little clampy things. So now for the rest. All right, here are the boards for the sides of the greenhouse. Taking out the back. All right, there's the back flap. All right, here we have the first flap, flapping in the wind. We're gonna remove it and fold it up. We've got carrots up here. Pulling them out right out of the ground. Full bloom. Garden's doing pretty good here. The beds, the cover crops. And so in a few months, we'll expect something like that again, like some spring kind of flavors. All right, here we have our blueberries that we pruned. All right,
Yes, so
hello.
we're preparing potting mix, and we have already sifted 2 buckets of compost.
All right.
So this is our final sifted potting mix. Combination of compost, sifted turf loam, and peat moss. And it's just really got a wonderful texture, great fertility. We've added a few minerals to it to enrich it. And the seedlings just love it.
All right, here we are. Some dirt, and this fork. And so with biodynamic intensive, grow bio intensive, the style is to add about an inch of compost and then fork it in with the fork, which, is intensive but kind of fun. And like it just becomes this like ritual you do every time you're going to switch something out. And I don't know if you've ever seen someone on a fork. This is a broad fork. It looks pretty fun. I definitely learned like multiple skills I never thought I would get into by just being open-minded and like just opening up to how life itself could teach you. Like I didn't need to like teach me much, and then I learned a lot, and then I came here and I learned a lot, and my will at both places was to learn. And it's funny to see like how am I going to make a living when I obviously have a lot of skills. It's just they're diversified and I don't know what to make of them. It's a big puzzle on the floor. All right, piece about here. 6th of June. Here are the roses. Here are the grapes. All right, here we have the blueberries. As you can see, the berries starting. And here you have the vertical dimension of the yard. It's getting up there. Trellis. Some more berries. Here we have 4 empty beds about to be planted. All right, so here we have our topsoil layer. And all right, we got our 3.5 buckets of compost. There you have Gene spreading the minerals. We have a dirt clod bucket for clogged clog. And here we have a stone bucket. Some shovels. All right, so we've got the U-bar here. We just U-barred and aerated all that soil.
Take out your stick. There's the hole.
And for those who don't know, those are sweet potatoes. And they're sweet potato slips. We planted in the ground. It's been an hour. The show has been going on for an entire hour. Thank yourself. Pat yourself on the back. If you listen to the whole thing and you want some more shows, please show your appreciation by going to check out neoterra.org and the School of Living and everything else. I mean, since this video has been really cool, I hope this next season is similar and I get to rekindle my joy of learning and available time to do so. So I'm really glad that I wake up every morning and just have like a good idea of like how, I could just go ahead and live, but I do have to learn. And so it is funny to say the School of Living doesn't have a building, and yet everywhere we go is a School of Living. And so I encourage people to get a vocational path, something that they feel called to do, and go on with that, and just move towards autonomy. I think Ralph Borsodi would not have wanted everybody to rely on him to know what to do next. But it seems like the line of thought that the School of Living follows is we're an active educational organization that helps people become more autonomous through gifts of our time and our expertise. And you know what? Like we have helped a lot of communities that aren't in the community land trust systems get started. So when you start to like point out all the ones on the East Coast that know of each other, we're quickly thrown under the bus as like that awesome place that you have to know about, the School of Living, which has no building. So anyways, love and life to everybody who watched this thus far and is watching this in the future. I hope your day's great. Love and light and peace be with you. If you want to know more, feel free to ask me. And if you haven't found that page earlier about going to the School of Living and going to publishings, it's as easy as that. And then there's this new link people might not have. If you want to see more, I'll show you this. If you want to see more, you could type in www and go to neoterra.org. If you want to see more of that last video I was showing you, where we come out of the hibernation of winter, which is about to happen, and start to plant seeds and make in potting soil. And you'll see on the right, there's some of my videos. And I think it's cool. You even have, you know, I don't know. You have a lot of information in the green design, grown food. And if you'd like to contact them, there's a section you could do so. And they're looking for interns always, as long as they're super motivated and they're willing to learn. So anyways, there's a lot of free resources. I totally recommend just nerding out on their website if you have a minute. And yeah. Vous m'en direz des nouvelles. You'll tell me the news, they say in French. So this has been the Educational Committee Podcast. Where is the School of Living? It's in me, in you, in your heart, and stay true to what you're doing. And I'll see you next time.